this week. Today I'm here to introduce Alison Flanigan, who's going to talk about her time with IBM and Booz Allen Hamilton. Alison actually graduated from Penn State back in 2005 with a bachelor's in IST and an MBA from University of Maryland. And currently she's working as a cyber project manager, securing and protecting national security, which is pretty cool. So with that, let's please give Alison a full attention.
Thank you, Tim. So a little bit about me. I did graduate from Penn State IST in 2005. I have a couple of fun facts to share with you about my time here. In my tenure here, I was the second president of Women in IST. And during that time, I had the opportunity to arrange a 5K race across the IST building, which it was called the IST building, now it's called Westgate. And that was super fun because it was supporting the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure. And during that time, I had to go around to a bunch of different departments and gather like 48 different signatures just to allow us to run across this, this building, which acts as a bridge from West to East Campus, which is kind of cool. Other fun facts. So I also helped with founding the IST Ambassadors, which I think they have a different name now. And some of you probably know what that is. Maybe Allison? Okay. So we used to give tours of this building. And we used to give tours of this building in hard hats before it was actually a building, which was kind of cool. Let's see, what else? Has anyone been to the IST Pro Expo? Yeah? Show of hands? Cool. So I actually started that. So my senior year, I pitched that to the dean. I thought we really had a gap where we needed to have an opportunity for students like you all to get to meet with companies and talk about your aspirations and learn about those companies to find opportunities for you to launch your career. So, so really the Pro Expo was my last thing that I accomplished before departing Penn State. So that's kind of a fun fact there. What I'd like to know a little bit about you all is what are you guys doing after you graduate from here? Because I think you're all seniors. Can you show some hands? Does everybody have careers lined up? Job offers signed? Yeah? Where are you guys going? Just shout it out. DC? Who are you working for? Okay. I haven't heard of them, but that's interesting. I know, Tim, you shared you're going to IBM, which is some of my old stomping grounds. Anybody else? Very cool. So my husband, who is also a Penn State IST grad, spent some time at Deloitte. He now owns his own business. He has his own startup company working for the government, and they've grown threefold in the last year, which is kind of exciting. Very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that with me. So like I said, I worked at IBM as my first career kind of move after graduating from Penn State. I worked in global business services, so that provided me with the opportunity to travel all across the country and internationally, implementing large-scale IT systems for different Fortune 100 companies, which was kind of exciting because I got to tinker with different technologies. I got to, welcome. I got to meet a lot of different people, and I got to work on different teams, learn different industries, and really explore different parts of the country and international companies, which was kind of cool. So I did that for about 4 years, which was exciting. But as I was pivoting into wanting to pursue my MBA, I decided that working full-time, traveling, and having a part-time MBA program that I was pursuing was a lot to balance. So I decided to find a career that would allow me to balance those two things as I pursued my MBA. So that's where I moved into working for Booz Allen Hamilton in the government sector, and really had the opportunity to explore a lot of different things. So I'm going to kind of pivot into my journey at Booz Allen and some of the different things that I've done done there. And please feel free to stop me at any point in time if you have questions about my experience, my journey, or things of that nature, or lessons that I've learned. Happy to share those with you. Cool. So that's a picture of my golf team. We started a women's league because we noticed that a lot of the guys that were our peers or our superiors, that they golfed a lot and they got a lot of business done on the golf course. And none of us had the opportunity to kind of pick up golf in our spare time. And we wanted to have that opportunity open to us. So we went and we took private lessons and we learned how to golf. And we've played in 4 different tournaments. One we came in last. That was our first one. We also finished like 3.5 hours in, almost 4 hours in, and most people finish in about 3. So we were kind of the latecomers to the party. But that second tournament, we had the longest drive by a woman, and we had the longest drive overall, which was kind of exciting, and that was from our team. So we've actually inspired not just the 4 of us who are golfing, but there are 3 other teams of 4 that are golfing now, which is kind of cool. So that's just a little bit of a fun fact, and I wanted to share that with you. I'm going to talk first about kind of my experience in standing up a startup within a company, which is kind of an exciting and interesting thing to do. So I'll tell you a little bit of back history. You saw the picture of me and my husband and our 3 beautiful kids. When I was actually expecting our 3rd child, I was just about to go out on maternity leave. I was about 2 weeks out, and my partners pulled me aside and they said, "Hey, Allison, when you come back from maternity leave, we would really like you to stand up a new organization within the company. And we're also in the midst of promoting you. So you're going to come back with more responsibilities, and you're going to stand up this new startup organization within the firm. Oh, and we also are going to need you to help us with writing the proposal for the $1 billion contract that you're going to be partially managing." So that was a lot to think about going out on maternity leave with my 3rd child. So I had about that 3-month period where I was kind of noodling, well, what does this startup organization look like? How do we make it successful? What kinds of things do I need to be doing to position us to win this $1 billion contract? And how am I going to adjust to having 3 kids and working full time? So it was a lot of things that I was kind of tackling all at the same time. But when I came back from maternity leave, it was a very exciting time, and it was actually right now about 3 years ago, actually almost to the date that I came back. So April is the start of our new fiscal year. It just so happened that my 3rd child arrived, and when I was coming back from maternity leave, it was at the start of our new fiscal year. So some of the things that we did, and I'll just tell you a little bit about this organization. So it was our cyber organization. And what that meant for us is that we kind of are organized by different clients that we support. So we have these horizontals that go across our firm. And the horizontals are things like, there's the Army account, there's the Air Force account, there's the Navy Marine Corps account, there's the civil agencies like Social Security Administration and the IRS and things like that, right? There's all of the DoD and the intelligence community horizontal organizations that we have. And what we are trying to do was stand up these verticals, and we had a horizontal organization that we were trying to stand up that allowed us to kind of piece together all of these functional knowledge, skills, and capabilities across all of those accounts, because we are having all of these great innovations happening, but we weren't able to spread them across all of those organizations so that we could capitalize on them and bring better solutions to our clients. So that was really our goal as we were coming to start up this new organization. And so what we had to do in order to kind of understand what was happening across each of those accounts was to have our first ever event where we brought all of the leaders who are leading these cyber businesses across each of those accounts together, and we talked about the different service offerings that we were providing across those accounts. And just because we were providing them today might not mean that we want to provide them tomorrow. And so we also had to talk about that, because if you're familiar with capabilities, a capability that exists today might be a commodity that exists tomorrow, right? So you might not be able to provide these services and solutions at kind of the top end price point that you want to provide them at in the future. So how do you continuously evolve those service offerings over time so you're always staying at kind of the bleeding edge of, one, where your clients need services, but two, ahead of what they think they're going to be needing, so that you can be bringing those innovative solutions to them. And so part of what we are looking at is kind of the innovation horizons for cyber service offerings. And what I mean by that is, if you're familiar with kind of the horizons for innovation, you think about kind of the adjacencies, and that's really where we are focused on first. So if something cool is happening in the Air Force account, well, can we use that in the account that works on civil agencies? So can we use that with the IRS? That would be an adjacent kind of innovation that we'd be looking at. Similarly, we are looking at kind of the things that would be game changers. So things that our clients weren't asking for just yet, but what were the things that we could be researching and innovating on that would be game changers for those clients, and how many clients across all of those accounts could use that same capability. So that's really what our Cyber Summit was focused on, is kind of norming on all of these service offerings. What are the things that we want to be doing today? Which one of those will be commoditized tomorrow? And how do we share those best practices, as well as the talent behind those services, to be able to bring something to bear across all of the accounts, which was quite a heavy feat for us. The opportunity space that we were looking at after we kind of looked at all of the different procurements, the different contracts that were on the horizon, summed up to over a few $1 billion, which was quite a great opportunity space for us to get into. We just needed to organize and figure out how we were going to go to market as a broader organization, kind of on that horizontal. And so that was a really exciting place for me to operate. I got to learn about different service offerings across all of the accounts. I got to meet a lot of different people. I got to stretch my skills, both from a technology perspective, but also leveraging my MBA, where I could think about those service offerings and how do you monetize them, and then when do those become commoditized so that we need to replace those with newer innovations that we can bring to bear. So it was kind of a fun place. It was scary because I had just come back from maternity leave. We were working on a $1 billion proposal to actually win the work that I now oversee today. And I was juggling having a newborn and 2 other kiddos at home, and it was busy. So I'll stop there for a moment. Any questions about kind of that experience? Sure.
Sure. This is a random question, but how do you navigate the first couple of years at a large organization, and like, do you have any tips for like beginners in a big business?
Oh, that's an awesome question. Okay, so tips. And I will have some kind of lessons that I'll share at the tail end, kind of from my journey. Really, what's important is to build a network of people, and to build it as fast as you can. Because what's going to happen is you're going to come across a different challenge that maybe you don't have the right expertise, or you don't have the right people on your team who can really address that challenge, but you're going to know somebody who knows somebody else who knows somebody else who has the right person who can solve that challenge for you, right? And so by building that network, you're going to have kind of this cadre of people that you're pulling with you who can be kind of a sounding board when you're thinking through tough challenges and potential solutions. But you're also going to have kind of this cadre of people who help you with actually getting stuff done. And so I like to call it GSDing at work, and I'll actually block off time when I'm GSDing at work so that I can not go to meetings and not answer email, but I can just focus on some tough challenges that I need to work on. But today, I actually have a really great network of folks who are, people who are subordinates, people who are superiors to me, and people who are in my peer group. A lot of folks in my peer group, we are all very supportive of each other. And so that's a really critical thing, because you get to have your network and they all have their own networks, and you can kind of pool all of those resources to be able to provide better solutions to your clients. And that's something that has really helped me to navigate the first couple of years in my career, is being resourceful and really knowing who the right people are who can help me with tough challenges. Yeah.
Hi, just regarding what you were just talking about, after you had your third kid, how did you sort of balance that new work along with your family? Were you able to work remotely at all, or how did you kind of manage that?
So that's a good question. So for the proposal, I could work remotely. But for the startup organization, I actually spent time. So I'm from Maryland. I work in Maryland, but our home base for Booz Allen is down in Virginia, so McLean, Virginia. So I spent a lot of time shuffling between Virginia and Maryland and going back and forth. It had a lot to do with my success had a lot to do with having a really good partner in crime who could help me, right? So my husband, he and I kind of balanced all of the things that needed to get done, whether it was drop-off, pickups, field trips, making lunches, somebody is sick, whatever it might be, right? And so we kind of alternate, taking turns, who's out with a sick kiddo, who's taking somebody to the dentist, all of those things that seem mundane, but they need to get done because we care for our kiddos. But at the same point in time, we also, are very high achieving people in our work environment. So like I said, Eric is a Penn State IST grad as well. He worked at Deloitte for some time. We both started at IBM. He went to Bearing Point, who was actually acquired by Deloitte, and he moved over to Deloitte, recognized that there was a gap in kind of client delivery that he knew how to solve. And so he stood up his own company to be able to solve that exact challenge. And I think you guys have talked about in this class that most startups fail in their first year. He is actually in his second year of his business. And like I said, they've grown threefold, which isn't really that large, but it is large when you're talking about a small business working for the clients that we work for. And so it's a lot about finding the partner in crime who can balance all of the things that you need to balance, and also recognizing when you have priorities, whether it's at work or at family things, and figuring that out.
Sorry, one more. And did you find that those companies were like supportive of your need to go home or stay at home with the kids? Were they supportive of that?
Absolutely. So I think, as you're evaluating the companies that you're looking at, you want to be looking at kind of the culture and the things that they value, and do those values align with your personal values, right? Because if I couldn't just leave in the middle of the day and take my kiddos to a hayride for their school field trip because it's October and that's the thing that we do, that would be really upsetting for me as a person, right? Because I'd miss out on those really important moments for them. But at the same point in time, I also like to be able to do things like this and come up to Penn State for the day and get to talk to you all and get to know you all a little bit more. And all of those things are things that are very supported by my company. And so we share those same core values, which is why I've worked at Booz Allen for over 11 years. Those are great questions. Any others? I'll kind of move into the second thing, if not. Cool. So like I said, at Booz Allen, I am a cyber program manager. So I manage about 280 folks. That's about $120 million worth of revenue every year that I'm overseeing. That's one of my day jobs. That was the work that I was working on the proposal for. We are prepping for the $2 billion follow-on that's coming out in the next year. A couple of other hats that I wear. I'm also a market leader, and what that means is I take a look at kind of the opportunity space within our clients' kind of pipeline. So our clients let contracts, and those contracts come out in a competitive form for large companies. So it's a request for proposal that gets released. We respond to it. Typically, we're shaping what that opportunity looks like because we want the types of evaluation criteria and the way that the government is procuring to be very advantageous to us, and you do that through capture activities and shaping kinds of activities before the RFP gets led. And that's something that you really want to do to kind of position yourself in a strong place as you go after these multi-million-dollar opportunities. So part of my role as a market leader for the company is to look at what opportunities will allow us to diversify our support across that particular market, what kinds of solutions and capabilities do we want to bring to bear, and then actually going after those and providing kind of the right team composition, so pairing up with different companies who I think will bring other complementing skills or capabilities to the table to strengthen our position. And that's actually something that I'm working on right now. We have 2 different opportunities that are actually live where we have RFPs that are out that the team is working on. So later this afternoon, I have a conversation where we're going to kind of walk through the RFP documentation that came out and figure out how we're going to respond to the challenge statements, which is kind of exciting. So that's the second hat that I wear. I'm a career manager for a lot of the folks that I oversee. And what that means is I help them navigate their careers at Booz Allen, whether that's helping them to identify new training, different conferences, different experiences that they want to pursue. That's really my job, to kind of act as a Sherpa for them through their journey at Booz Allen, use my network to connect them with different opportunities that they might not have seen were open to them, really aligned to their career aspirations. And that's something that's really important to me, that I find a lot of value from, is really being able to pay kind of my network forward to those folks who are kind of growing up behind me. And then the final role that I have is really this lead for our Artificial Intelligence Center of Excellence, and working our strategic partnerships that we have with both Microsoft and NVIDIA focused around artificial intelligence. For our clients, there is a big challenge around kind of augmentation, automation, and the use of artificial intelligence techniques. And that wasn't something that I grew up kind of knowing and understanding. So it's a capability, it's a domain area that I had to learn over time. And so kind of going back to the question that was asked previously, I really leveraged my network of folks who were data scientists, who did grow up in understanding machine learning and artificial intelligence to kind of make me smarter, point me to different articles and research papers, and help me grow into this role, which was really fantastic for me as I was kind of pivoting into picking up this fourth role. And so something that we're kind of pursuing is a lot of different ideas around how do you monetize artificial intelligence, and how do you do so to solve tough challenges for our clients, which is something that really requires the right technology to underpin providing these capabilities. Technology that our clients don't currently have. So how do we help to get our clients to understand the value of things like GPU compute, or things like leveraging a cloud service provider to have a consistent platform where you can use and train kind of these machine learning models, store the data sets that you're leveraging, and things of that nature. So that's kind of an exciting role that I have pivoted into in the last year. And it's something that has required me to kind of, again, stretch my skills and continuously learn and evolve my own strengths and build my network in a different way. So that was kind of a fun area to kind of grow into. Any questions on that before I pivot? Okay, cool. So the last one that I wanted to talk about, because I think you all wanted to hear a little bit about some cool technologies or things that we're looking at from a company perspective. So I wanted to share a little bit about what we're doing in our innovation hub, specific to kind of our research row. So at Booz Allen, we have kind of a bunch of different innovation hubs that are distributed across the United States. And we do a lot of different research there that's really relevant to the clients in that local geographical region. So we have one in DC, but we also have one in Central Maryland. The Central Maryland one is the one that I'm talking about. So there, we're really focused on a couple of different technologies. The first one being looking at network function virtualization and software-defined networks, and the way that they're going to change the telecom industry. That's incredibly important to us as we are looking at different ways that our adversaries can leverage different technologies to disrupt different capabilities that we use here in the United States and abroad, right? So if, for example, an adversary was able to get their hands on a SDN controller, well, then they basically own that entire telecom industry's network, right? So how do you protect that, and how do you reduce the attack surface so that you don't have so many vulnerabilities that have to be exposed so that an adversary could do that? So that's one of the things that we're researching in Research Row. We're doing that in partnership with our clients, which is really interesting. Another thing that we're pursuing is taking a look at industrial control systems and SCADA systems, which is another really interesting thing as we're thinking about kind of different buildings as well as the energy grid, and how do we protect all of those systems, again, from malicious actors, from either somebody who's having fun, hacking and doesn't really know what they're doing, to nation state actors, right? So how do we protect that energy grid from potential threats by mitigating the vulnerabilities that we're identifying and really hardening the infrastructure that those devices sit on. So that's a really fun area that we're researching as well. Smart cities is another interesting one, which I kind of find personally satisfying, because when I was here, we actually researched smart homes. And I'm really excited because I live in a smart home now, where I get to walk into my house and I say, turn on the lights, and the lights turn on, and I've got my bags of groceries with me, or I've got kid lunch boxes and things, and lights turn on, and it's beautiful. But that was something that I researched here and wrote a paper about, and it was super exciting. And now we're looking at kind of a larger scale around smart buildings and smart cities, and again, looking at the different sensors, the different IoT devices, and thinking about the protocols and the signals that are coming off of those, and how could you leverage those to exploit those devices and bring down a building or a city at scale. Again, from kind of that adversarial attack vector perspective, which is kind of exciting. Yeah.
Okay. Pardon me. Hello. So you have all these job, responsibilities. Do you think the reason you're successful is you're able to maximize your efficiency? Like a lot of people, I feel struggle with staying focused and stuff. You seem to have so many different responsibilities and are still able to manage that work-life balance. So what do you think has made you successful in that regard?
Good question. So I am not a team of one. I am a team of many. So I have a lot of different folks, kind of like I mentioned, having that network, right? It's not just the network, it's the team that you bring with you, and the way that you treat that team so that they want to continuously come with you, and learning how to leverage all of the strengths across that team to accomplish all of the things that you need to accomplish. I would never survive doing all of these roles if I didn't have a great second team and they didn't have great second teams. It's the way that you build leaders underneath you. It's the way that they're building the next generation of leaders under them. And it really comes down to understanding, like I said, the team's strengths and what everybody brings to the table, and how you can help to hone folks who have kind of those gaps or those opportunities to grow, and give them safe safe opportunities where they can fail, and you can encourage them to try it and fail, where it's not going to kind of blow up and be a career derailer for them, but it's going to be an opportunity for them to kind of grow their confidence in a different area that they never thought that they would grow in, right? Or that they wanted to grow in, but they never had a safe opportunity to do so. And so it really comes down to building great second teams behind you, right? And that's how I operate, right? I've got a great second team from a market perspective. I've got a great second team from a contract delivery perspective. Same thing with kind of this AI Center of Excellence and the strategic partnerships piece. From a career manager perspective, it's pretty much me. But that's something that's valuable to me, where I do want to have kind of that one-on-one touch point with each of the folks that I am a career manager for. So that's something that I don't naturally delegate, unless I'm, say, trying to bring up somebody as a career manager. Then I'll bring them to different meetings so that they can see kind of how we tackle different topics and scenarios, issues, challenges, things of that nature. But I'd never be able to focus if I didn't have folks who are on my team. And that's one of the really great things, the skills that you're going to learn here, that you've learned here in IST, is really how to operate with new teams and how to quickly ramp up and understand everybody's strengths and what you bring to the table and how you get that particular project done using all of those skills. That translates very well into kind of the real world environment, where you're constantly going to be navigating different teams. And they're going to be matrix teams. Sometimes my boss reports to me. Sometimes I report to my boss. It just depends on the different project that we're working on and how we're matrixed together and who has kind of primacy over leading that particular project. So that's an interesting dynamic.
Kind of extending on that point a little bit, you were kind of talking about how you need that group, right? And you guys leverage each other's strengths to, complete a goal. And then with the IST majors, basically, it's a lot of group work and working together to complete a goal. What, when you were here at school, what did you learn in class, or did the IST major and faculty help you with that translated well into your job and into the real world?
Great question. So something that I think is extremely valuable is really the technique of problem-based learning, right? Because that's something that translates very well into the corporate world, in the sense of everything that you're doing is a problem that you are tackling, and you're working through those problems with a different group of people, right? And what that problem-based learning methodology really instills is that continuous desire to learn, right? Because every time you guys get a new project in class, you have to learn kind of the ins and outs, the context of that problem, right? It's not something that you've already known about, or maybe it is, but to some degree, there's learning that's involved as you get a new problem, right? And so I think kind of coupling the problem-based learning and kind of the byproduct of having that continuous hunger to learn is incredibly important to kind of being successful in the real world, right? So once you kind of start your career. And I think another important thing that you pick up here is really having a safe environment to fail, and understanding when it's safe to fail, and being okay with failing, right? And so I think I say that in the sense of, when you're working on these projects, you might go down this one rabbit hole, and it might not be the right rabbit hole to go down. So you and your team kind of back out and you go down another rabbit hole, right? But you have the opportunity to do that kind of over the course of solving that particular problem and working on that project, right? And so I think in kind of the professional environment, you have to be able to identify those folks who can be great champions for you, to identify ways that you can continuously grow in a safe kind of environment, right? Where you're taking a risk, a leap of faith, but it's not going to be a complete career derailer, right? And so seeking out those people, just like you have in kind of the faculty here and the professors here, that's what I would encourage you to do as you kind of pivot into your career, is really finding those people who can be that trusted advisor for you in your workplace. And whether you organizationally report up through them, or they're just somebody that you've met and you click with, or you've heard them talk and you trust them, somebody who can help you with navigating kind of different opportunities to help you grow and stretch in a safe way in your career, I think is really important too. Yeah.
So like you talked about a lot how you need to like have a good leader when you start like a company. Like how do you evaluate like when you go to a company and like when you have a manager, like if they're a good leader or like that's something you should stick with long term? Like what are some like the characteristics that you know this person's going to help you out in the long run?
Good question. So I think looking at leaders is something a little bit different than looking at the entire organization. I will tell you that I have had some not so great leaders and some really amazing leaders. Like they'd be my ride or die kind of person, right? Like I would follow them into the flames and do whatever it took to make sure that they are successful. You learn from both of those kinds of leaders. And it might not be that they don't share the same values. It might just mean that some of the strengths that you needed from them as a leader were not fully developed in them as a leader, right? And so that's why I'd kind of separate those two evaluations in the sense that you need to find mentors and trusted advisors that have kind of the characteristics to help you succeed and will help you navigate your career, which is different than, say, having an organizational leader that you align to who maybe manages, your salary actions and when you're getting promoted and things of that nature, right? What it comes down to is whether or not the value system that they all share aligns with your value system. So things that are important to me are transparency and honesty and teamwork and having passion about working really tough challenges and being resourceful about working those tough challenges. And so those are the kinds of characteristics that I personally value, that I look for in the teams that I'm going to support and the opportunities that are presented to me. And that when I'm looking at things that might be a safe risk for me to take or a calculated risk for me to take, I look at the leadership team and I think to myself, the leadership team and the team that they've surrounded themselves with, and I try to think about whether or not those folks have those shared values and those shared characteristics. That's super helpful. Now, sometimes you don't have a choice in kind of the opportunities that you're pursuing, whether it's, a business circumstance that pushes you into an opportunity, and so, maybe a door has closed and a window has opened, kind of a situation. But I think if you can find the positive in wherever you're going, and you can surround yourself with the right advisors, the right kind of peer group that allows you to be successful, that you can use as that sounding board to be successful in whatever that opportunity is, then I think you will be successful. But it's having that positive outlook and finding those positive things in whatever the situation presents, and then aligning yourselves to the folks who have those shared values. That's really critical. Any other questions? Cool. I went the wrong way. Maybe. All right. So some lessons to share. And I think we've kind of hit on a couple of these. But the first one is really about building a network of trusted advisors and achievers. This kind of likens back to when I was coming back from maternity leave and I had kind of that $1 billion proposal that I was working on. I had, new baby that I was balancing with the other two kiddos, as well as standing up a new startup organization within our firm. That was a really kind of big opportunity for me, and being able to leverage the network that I had to really get stuff done and the right kinds of stuff done was important. And I can't underscore the importance of really building that group of folks, whether it's, like I said, subordinates, peers, or superiors that you really trust, who you've seen operate successfully, and who really likes to achieve and get things done. That is incredibly important to your own success because, like I said, you can't take on all of these different hats, these different roles, without a great second team behind you. And you can't do so if they're not also building a great second team behind them. And so I think that's an incredibly important thing that I'd like you all to take away, is as you kind of journey into your careers, think about how you're going to be building that second team. And in some cases, I was really fortunate when I went to IBM because I brought some of my IST peers with me. And so we all kind of started the same time frame at IBM, and we all kind of went off to our different projects, but we all had our own networks that we were building within IBM. And we could share those networks across each other. So it was kind of nice to start with other folks who grew up at Penn State IST and kind of understood the same kind of skills, and I knew that we had some shared values in common. So that was kind of exciting. It was a completely different experience going to IBM or going to Booz Allen because I didn't have that network. So I had to start from scratch. And so my goal was always to meet at least one new person every week. And so I would go out of my way to have a quality interaction with somebody new that I had never met before that worked in my building. And so whether that was the receptionist, who is an incredibly important person when you're trying to get a meeting room for a really important meeting, and they know who has locked down that meeting room, and they only need it for an hour of the day, and they've got it blocked off for the entire day. Or meeting somebody who works in a different functional area that you might have a symbiotic relationship with because, hey, your client might need that particular solution or service that they provide, right? So that's kind of an incredibly important skill that I would encourage you to think about as you're starting in your career. The second thing is kind of like what I was harkening on before this slide, which is really seeking the positive, right? So when I came back from maternity leave, I could have come back and I could have said, wow, this startup organization is really overwhelming and we've never done this before across our entire firm. And I could have been overburdened by just the scale of everything, right? But again, something that IST really teaches us is to take a problem and to decompose it into these smaller, more manageable parts that we can then solution against, right? And so that was another skill that I was, like I said, able to bring to the table, and that's what kept me very positive, is that it wasn't this huge elephant that I was trying to solve, but it was rather, okay, I've got this tusk over here and a leg over here and a tail over here, and I can solve those things. And then eventually I solved the whole thing, right? And being able to leverage my network really helped me with keeping positive because I could bounce different ideas off of them, use them as a sounding board, or they knew somebody who could help me with thinking through this tough problem who had been there before or kind of been there before, and I could leverage their lessons learned and some of the best practices that they had brought to that particular problem into the problem that I was trying to solve. And then the last thing that I would share is dare to go there. So something that I didn't mention when I was coming back from maternity leave were two other personal things that were happening in my personal life, right? So I kid you not, the first week back from maternity leave, so newly promoted, I'm working on a $1 billion proposal, I've standing up this startup organization, I've got third kiddo at home. That same week, the same day, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And so we had to triage and figure out everything that was going on with her. How are we going to get her to the right chemo and radiation therapy? Is it something that is curable? And things of that nature. So that was something that happened in the first week of my return from maternity leave. That same day, so I found out that my mom had cancer, talked to her doctor at work, and I came home and my husband is bent over the counter and he's sick. And he has to go to the emergency room and had to stay in the emergency room for several weeks because he had a rare condition that was eventually solved, but it took a few weeks to actually figure out what it was. So all of these things were happening in my life all at the same time, and I could have easily crumbled under the pressure and the stress of all of these things happening at one point in time in my life. But instead I sought the positive, and I dared to figure out all of these things. And so, like I mentioned, being able to take apart all of these different problems and dissect them into things that you can solve, right, is really, really important. And it's an important skill that IST prepares you with as you kind of embark on your career. And I would encourage you to think about leveraging that skill and thinking through how you take those calculated risks and breaking those opportunities down into manageable parts so they're not so overwhelming, so that you can see that you can actually solve those kinds of things and dare to be able to take those things on. So that's everything. Tim, do you have a question?
So for students who are still looking for work after college, do you have any advice on how we can stay proactive and like looking for a job?
Yes. So I think that there are a number of things that you could kind of pursue. So there's the typical career fairs, right? But there's tons of postings all over, right? So like I could tell you that, you know, Booz Allen right now, we have lots and lots of sold opportunities that are not staffed down in our Virginia area. So if you're looking to migrate to the Virginia area, there's a lot of opportunities down there. We have a lot of opportunities in our commercial arm as well. And I would venture to say that every company has that same need, right? Where they have tons and tons of openings. It's just a matter of finding the one that speaks to you, where you want to dip your toe in the water and start your career there. Quite frankly, you can't make a bad decision with your first opportunity. It's what you make of that opportunity that will change the course of your career and kind of that projection, right? So you could start at any company, be successful, because you're going to make the most out of whatever that opportunity presents to you, right?
While you were at IBM, what prompted you? Thanks. While you were at IBM, what prompted you to seek out other opportunities, and what made you decide on Booz Allen?
Good question. So while I was at IBM, I was a traveling consultant. So I traveled Monday through Thursday all across the globe. I was very fortunate because usually my husband and I, we'd just fly to different cities, and we would see each other Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But for a good year of our time at IBM, we both were based in Santa Monica, California. And it was during that time when I was kind of like, you know what, I don't see you enough. And it would be really nice to see you more than 3 days out of the week. So that was kind of happening, as well as I was doing a part-time MBA. So working full-time, so probably 50, 60 hours a week, and doing a part-time MBA where it was all day Saturday, and I'd do homework throughout the week, right? And that was kind of exhausting. It was a lot to balance and a lot to juggle. And so I kind of took a step back and I said, what are the things that I value right now? And what are the things that I will value in the future, right? And so having a little bit better of a work-life balance was something that I wanted to pursue. And it was only like that because, again, I was traveling all the time. I wasn't seeing my husband as much as I'd like to, and I was doing a part-time MBA. So when I was looking around, Booz Allen was actually a company that I thought about pursuing as my first company. I had interned at IBM, and so it was kind of a known entity where I knew their values and I knew some of the people, and it was a place that I felt confident with going. And I really loved working at IBM. It was really hard for me to depart. But in doing so, I got to find, I had the opportunity to find Booz Allen, and I had the opportunity to meet a bunch of different people who also had these shared values. As kind of my values changed over time, right? As I grew up, I had different priorities and different things that I was kind of juggling from both a work and a life perspective. that value system kind of adjusted, right? So having more time with my family, having more balance and more flexibility was something that really was important to me, versus the opportunity to kind of travel all over and meet different clients and tackle different challenges. I had to find that in a different way at Booz Allen. And whether that was the different roles that I pursue, the different second teams that I build, or the different networks that I leverage, it again comes back to kind of finding those values and being able to reassess what your value system is at the different points in time in your life, because they will change over time. It's just how they change and how they evolve, and then aligning to the right company that, that supports that value system.
Excellent. I think we've reached the end of our time, so if we could please thank you, Alison, for sharing your story and your advice.
Thank you so much for having me.